Good morning, everyone. Wasn't that a great keynote that we just saw? Well, I have another great session here for the Splunk community. My name is Tom. I'm with Hurricane Labs and our Director of Technical Operations, and also one of the people you'll see wandering around Conf with the Fez. What does that mean? We're the Splunk community. We are the people who are helpful and help you get the most out of Splunk, and are the ones who are jumping into Splunk Answers, jumping into Splunk Slack, and trying to help you make the most out of the product. I have the opportunity to represent everyone who is wearing a Fez here and talk a little bit about community updates for this year. So there are a lot of good that happened in the past year. You've probably noticed, maybe by looking at Splunk.com, but Splunk is now a Cisco company. What does that mean? Well, as Splunk community members, we were probably a little bit concerned at the beginning. What happens when our favorite company gets acquired by another company? Are things going to change? Are things going to be different? Well, the good news is a lot of the same is good. The Splunk community, it's still alive and thriving. Splunk Answers is just as active as it used to be. The Splunk community Slack constantly is filled with helpful information from people trying to help you get the most out of the product. So that is awesome to see. We also are still here at Conf. I'm here at Conf. I get to see all my friends and Fezes, and it's great to have the opportunity to come together once a year to do that. And also, Splunk as a product, it does the same thing that it used to. The things we love about Splunk, it still works the same way. We get a chance to use it. That is something that has not changed. So it's great to be here at Conf. It's great to still see the Splunk community. And hopefully, next year, we'll be able to do the same thing as well. Also, Splunk Enterprise Security version 8. It now exists. It's been released, and it's generally available. Last year at Conf 24, that was something that was introduced. They talked about it, but it wasn't something you could go and download. We've had months now where it's available for customers. I work with a managed security services provider, Hurricane Labs. We have a lot of clients that use enterprise security because that's a key to how we deliver services. And clients using enterprise security are generally very happy with what they see with ES8. It took time to get there. It is a big upgrade, but it's something that is really helpful for analysts. A couple things. When you're in an investigation, ES really makes that key information that you need as an analyst available front and center. Your risk score, that's something that you can see right away. Also, details about the timeline and contributing events for an incident are all visible right in the UI. So that is something that we love about ES8. And it is something that is really helpful with making that product useful from a security perspective. I would say there are going to be some things we debate about. Renaming incident review to mission control, that's going to be something that's going to be argued to the end of time. But we have to get used to it in order to recognize the things that are good about ES8. So all in all, great upgrade, great to see it. Ideas.splunk.com. This is something we have the Splunk community to thank for. So Splunk community, you share an idea, it goes on ideas.splunk.com. We get recommendations about that. The top features often get added to the product. You'll see right there, enable deployment server to upgrade versions. That is something that is now available in Splunk. So you can upgrade universal forwarders or the Splunk agent directly from the deployment server. This is something back in Splunk 9.4 you could do from Linux, and now in Splunk 10 you can do that from Windows. I went ahead and tested this out on Linux several months ago and wrote a guide on how to do that. If you go to hurricanelabs.com/conf25, you can see a tutorial about that, or you can scan the QR code. And you can take that along with the documentation that the docs team has and be able to look at implementing this in your environment. There's also some really cool features in Splunk 10 as the product has evolved that I'm excited to share with you. And one of the big ones is the audit trail dashboard. Now I want to show of hands from you in the audience. How many of you have ever looked at the audit index in Splunk to try to solve a problem? I see a bunch of you raising your hands. Now, those of you that have looked at audit logs in Splunk, have you found them kind of terrible? I know I have. And it's something that's not really the most useful information in Splunk. You look at that ideas screenshot, the second one on there was better audit logs. Well, one of the things Splunk is now doing in Splunk 10 is shipping an audit trail dashboard by default. And you can see information about what changes are made all in that UI. You don't have to install anything additional. It's just there. So as someone who routinely needs to look in and try to figure out what's going on in a Splunk environment, this is awesome to see. And I'm really happy to see the product team taking some feedback from the users. One of the other things that is added is the edge processor service. Now, this is something that used to be Splunk Cloud only. But I know not everyone is in Splunk Cloud. So you can now use this with on-prem Splunk Enterprise. And that's great to see that that feature is now something that's available at a wider scale to all Splunk customers, as opposed to just the ones that are on cloud. Next, agent management. If you've used the deployment server, you're probably familiar with the forwarder management interface. This is now called agent management in Splunk 10 because it supports the OpenTelemetry, or OTel agent, as well, as Serby points out. So multiple agents are supported, but there's some other really cool features that exist in here as well. Now, agent configuration, you can view some details about the system. You can see your host name, your operating system, IP address, all that details. This was some stuff that you could see before. But I really want to call your attention to that effective configuration link there at the top. This is really cool. So as a managed services provider, I deal with a bunch of different customer Splunk environments. They have agents all over the place. I don't have direct access to those. Before, what I'd have to do to troubleshoot a problem, talk to a customer who often has to talk to an admin to run through, collect a diag, ship that over to me, have me look at the configuration. Now, I can do that all in the deployment server interface. If you click on agent configuration, you can view your inputs config, your outputs config, your deployment server config. That all exists in the UI of the deployment server. This is going to save me hours and hours of time troubleshooting problems because I don't need to involve multiple other people to collect information. So I love seeing this feature. I agree with Jeff Lind here. This is one of the most recent things in Splunk to get me really excited, especially as an admin. Now, as a Splunk admin, you see it wouldn't be a Tom talk at Conf if I wasn't going into some tips and tricks and things I've learned administering Splunk over the past year. And this talk is no exception. So let's roll. Newer versions of Splunk, you probably know, are focusing more on security. The universal forwarder used to always run with the elevated permissions level. Splunk is scaling that back because you don't want your tool that collects your security events to become a security issue, which is great. I love seeing that. This, however, does sometimes result in there being some challenges because reduced permissions make it harder to collect data sometimes. So you might run into a case where you can't read all the logs that you expect. So if you have universal forwarders running Windows, which, show of hands, I imagine is basically everyone here, with a couple of exceptions, which is fine. If you don't run Windows, no judgment. I have no problem with that at all. But if you are running Windows, run this search. Search your internal index for the exec processor looking for this could not subscribe error. If you see this, that means that there is very likely a permissions issue resulting in not being able to read a specific log channel in Windows. Just a couple weeks ago, I helped a client work through this, and it was really weird. You could see their application and their system logs without a problem, but the security logs weren't being read. And obviously, using Splunk as a security solution, that's a problem. So we worked with them to fix that problem, adjusting your permissions so that the universal forwarder can read those log channels, typically through group policy or something similar. But once we fixed that, those logs came in as we expected, and we no longer saw this could not subscribe error. So I want you to go ahead, run the search, check for this issue, and that way, if you are missing data, you'll be able to fix that before you are in the middle of an incident and don't have the logs that you expect. Now, speaking of not having the logs that you expect, if an input stops working after an app upgrade, such as doing this on a heavy forwarder, this is something that you can do. So sometimes what will happen, a new version of an app will be released, there'll be some changes to the Python code in the bin directory. That can be something where you delete that bin directory and you replace it by upgrading the app. And what that's going to do is reinstall that app completely. You're not going to lose any of your configuration in the local directory by doing this, but it'll often clear out some of those execution errors for those binaries and result in data that wasn't flowing properly to come in. So quick thing to check, if you ever upgrade an app and that data stops working, go here first, and that hopefully will save you some time. Now, skip searches. How many of you have ever struggled with skip searches? I see some of you raising your hands. You are the real admins that are fighting the good fight to keep Splunk working the best that it can. Well, if you're not sure what to check for skip searches, go into your monitoring console or your cloud monitoring console, look for the skip searches dashboard. In this example, you'll see there's only 9, not too bad. I've seen environments where this is massively, massively larger. If it is, this is definitely something for you. So if you have skip searches, you can enable something called search skewing for saved searches. And this is going to result in Splunk automatically adjusting those searches to work within an allowed range. So instead of running a search every 5 minutes on 00, 05, 10, 15, 20, and so on, locked to that 00 second mark, Splunk will actually adjust that search in order to fit within an allowed time frame. So if we set an allowed skew for 5 minutes, within a 5-minute window of time, it'll run that search, maybe on 12 minutes and 17 minutes, or something similar. Obviously, it's a computer. It's going to do a better job than me just rattling off numbers. But by doing that, you better optimize your resources usage, and your searches are going to be less likely to conflict with each other, all fighting for the CPU at the same period of time. I have a visualization of this because I enabled this. I was looking for a screenshot to show you, and I have it. So let's take a look. So you'll notice before we made a change, there's a big difference between two sides of this graph. We have towers of searches running on 5-minute intervals. And then you'll see those searches are pretty evenly spread out. Right here is where we enabled skewing. And just by making that simple change, your searches are better spread out, your resources are better used, and you can see right away those number of skipped searches are really drastically reduced. So this basically cures cancer for your scheduler. I highly recommend doing that. You can make a bigger adjustment than 5 minutes if you need to, but it really can help you get the most out of your Splunk environment. Now, I'm just one of many wearing a fez here. We have the Splunk community. They all share suggestions, and I crowdsourced a couple of them building this talk. So a couple ones here. Putting your certs into an app so that you can manage them along with your openssl.conf. Great way to make configuration of something that is generally pretty complex, SSL configuration, a lot easier. You can also take a README file and move it into the search head cluster directory, and then run a btool to look for changes on your deployer before you push out updates. And then finally, you can take advantage of Linux systemd capabilities to adjust the UF so it can run read-only scripts with permissions needed to parse some files, such as your sudoers file. This kind of ties back to the Windows discussion we had earlier for allowing your universal forwarder to read a certain channel. You can do similar things with systemd in Linux, and that allows you to ingest data that might be harder to do without having to elevate the permissions on your Splunk universal forwarder. And finally, the Splunk community. I love them. This is a product that has a great team of people that all work together to contribute to making the product work best for people. And I love Kara's quote here. We all take different paths. We all have different customers we work with. We have different use of the product. Splunk is so powerful. It does so many different things. But the community allows us to all work together and share from that experience and learn from someone else who might be dealing with something very similar to what you have. So if you're not part of the Splunk community or not actively engaged, take this opportunity, join Slack, ask questions, post on answers, help each other out, and help everyone to get the most out of the product. Now, one of the things I love about being here at Conf is meeting all of you. I get to meet all of my friends with Fezes, our customers. I get to meet other Splunk users and just have nerdy talks about Splunk. But I know on the global broadcast sitting at home, you don't necessarily get that same chance. But I want to give you that chance. You shouldn't miss out on things just because you're not physically here at Conf. So next week, take the opportunity, talk to me. Go to hurricanelabs.com/conf25 or scan the QR code on screen. And what you'll be able to do, scroll down to the Ask Hurricane Labs link, click on there, and book some time with me. Just 5 minutes to talk to me, and I will help you answer any questions you might have. It might be something about the content in this session. It might be something you're just having a problem, you want to bounce some ideas off a fellow nerd. Or it might be something where you're just not sure where to find the answer. I can't guarantee I know everything. Actually, I can guarantee I don't know everything. But I can help you find the right person to answer your question. So take that opportunity, meet with me next week. And I'd love to run into as many of you as I can. So with that said, it's awesome to be part of the global broadcast. And it's a privilege to represent the Splunk community. Enjoy the rest of the day. And take care, everyone.